Hello, this is Jerry Morton. Welcome to my Finding My Way podcast. This is podcast number 58, titled Experienced Soldiers. Podcasts 34 through 61 are stories from the year of Army training I experienced. The training started in August 1966 and ended in June 1967. The stories are published in the book Reluctant Lieutenant, From Basic to OCS in the 60s, which was published by Texas A&M University Press as a military history. Podcast 58, Experienced Soldiers, is an account of Jerry's last few weeks of infantry OCS training in June of 1967. Jerry's wife joins him. He encounters lieutenants who have not received their commissions the OCS way, and listens to a graduation speech. It is recommended that you listen to the Army training stories in the order in which the podcast numbers present them, so that you can appreciate the full contextual richness of this and later stories. Podcast 58, Experienced Soldiers. The senior status party had been a real success. I stayed in the barracks that weekend. No one harassed us. It was pleasant. Sunday afternoon, I learned that Lieutenant Strauss had not taken the gerbil home. He told me to take care of it, the candidate with the pet store wife said. What should we do with it? Give it back to your wife, I quickly replied. She's already gone back to Atlanta. Well, let's keep it in the crawl space under the barracks until we can figure out something. Okay, he agreed. The week started with the same routine. We had to get ready for morning inspection, put on our clean, starched fatigues with the OCS brass positioned just right, no smudges on our gleaming belt buckles or spit-shiny shoes. It was all routine. We did those chores without thinking. What was new was that nobody was on our case. None of the tactical officers shouted. No one was dropped for push-ups. Junior candidates eyeballed us with clear apprehension and traces of fear. Our training schedule was not as rigorous. We were getting back earlier. During breakfast, late in the first week of our senior candidacy, the gerbil's keeper approached me in a state of agitation. Spitting out his words, he said, When Lieutenant Strauss unlocked his office door this morning, he found our gerbil. It was dead. Someone had put a hangman's noose around its neck and hung it from the ceiling fan. Damn, I thought. I should have anticipated something like this happening. I should have known not to stay with the temporary solution for housing the animal as long as we did. He went on. The word is that some guys from 4th Platoon did it. That figures, I commented. McCook was bent out of shape. He was bent out of shape that we had succeeded. What do you think we ought to do about it? We'd better just let it go. Yeah, I guess you're right, he said, and that was it. Anna drove down from Kentucky. One of the guys' wives had helped us find a place to rent. It was not far from Post. We had just a few more weeks until graduation. She arrived on a weekend. By Sunday afternoon we were settled in. There was not much unpacking to do. We left a lot of our belongings up there. We knew that I would get orders to go somewhere else. Whether she could come with me to my new assignment or not was unknown. We were just grabbing what moments we could to be together. I still had to maintain my cubicle space in the barracks as if I lived there. All of the inspections, formations, and so forth had to be met. I could go to be with her only at night and on the weekends. Actually, going home to her meant lost sleep. Normally, when they called for lights out, I would just crawl into my bunk. Now I would drive to our little house. We would talk about the day, and then I would go to bed. I had to get up a lot earlier in the morning to be at the barracks to do my share of the work for the morning inspections before the company went to breakfast. I lost a lot of sleep. I was glad to do it. Scotty approached me at my cubicle desk in an excited manner. "Hey, some new OCS candidates have just arrived in one of the barracks about a mile away. A bunch of the guys are going down to let them know what senior candidates are all about. Come on, let's go." "No, I don't want to do that," I said, with a slight smile. "Oh, come on, it will be fun," he said enthusiastically. "We won't be too hard on them." Calmly, I smiled and shrugged. "No, I don't want to do that." "Okay, but we'll tell you all about it," he said, running down the hallway. We got off the trucks near the rifle range. Our weapons had been obtained from the armory. The Army was going to have us practice our marksmanship this morning. Shouldering arms, the company marched toward the range in picture book style. There was no eyeballing. Everyone was in perfect step. Our feet were in perfect timing. They made a soft, strong drumbeat on the pavement and gravel. Each step was the same measured length. Our arms swung up the same number of inches in perfect unison with one another. No one concentrated on creating this perfection. It was habit. We did it naturally. It would have been unnatural if we had done anything else. A quiet pride was in us. When the command came to halt, all 6 platoons stopped as if they were one body. "Right face," came the command. 200 men pivoted in unison and stood at silent attention. We changed from being a column of marching men to a long line, a line that was 4 rows deep. We were lean. We were sharp in the skin-hugging tailor fatigues with the heavy starch creases. "Order, arms!" Like a machine, 200 rifles moved to their positions, snugly pressed against the length of each man's right leg, while the man remained standing at rigid attention, looking straight ahead into nothingness. Silence fell over the company as we awaited the next order. It would be to stack arms. In those brief seconds of anticipation, a new sound approached the silent company. A column of about 50 men was approaching the company of 200. They were marching, they were walking and talking in a loose formation on the gravel road directly in front of the silent 200. Their path would take them into the exact spot where the first row of senior candidates would set their tripods of stacked rifles. As the group came closer, the discord of their feet and sound of their muted voices greeted our ears. They were trying to march in formation. You could tell that because the group had a front and a rear with 4 mixed-up columns within the semi-square mass of moving men. "Halt!" commanded the first lieutenant, walking beside the formation. The group was directly in front of me. Instead of coming to a halt, the column kind of slowed to a milling of movement in place as the individuals continued to talk among themselves. Several were reacting from either bumping into the man in front of them or being bumped by one of the ones behind him. "Oh, come on, you guys, stop!" pleaded the lieutenant. Some movement did diminish. Since they were directly in front of me, I could see that they were all officers, second lieutenants, first lieutenants, and a few captains made up their ranks. They all looked very young. Perhaps they were ROTC graduates going on active duty. Another possibility was that they were National Guard officers in for some summer training. "Right, haste!" the lieutenant shouted. Most of the officers in the platoon made a swinging motions with their bodies to the right. There was little precision or unison in the movement. Several of the young officers were confused as to which way was their right or left. They turned in the opposite direction. Seeing their error, they corrected the turning in various states of partial turns and urgency. After several seconds of confusion, the entire group was facing the rifle range. We looked directly into the rear of their ranks. Talking within that formation never came to a complete halt. This caused a slight but continuous degree of movement within the formation as people leaned to talk to each other and to hear what was being said. The longer they stood in front of us, the greater grew the number of them engaged in talking. My OCS classmates and I stood at rigid attention in complete silence. The other group's leader spoke to someone at the head of the group. After a minute or two, he turned and faced his group. "Left, face!" he ordered. The platoon of officers displayed more confusion. Fewer of them knew their left side than had known their right side. "Forward, march!" the lieutenant said in a smaller voice. Obediently, the group shuffled down the road in the same disorganized manner in which it had arrived. "Hey, if you're driving off post, would you mind dropping something off at Lieutenant Stanton's house?" a guy from 6th Platoon asked. "Sure, I'd be glad to," I told him. Lieutenant Stanton was 6th Platoon's tactical officer. He seemed to be an okay guy. At least, he never bothered the guys in 6th Platoon very much. I did not mind having to deal with him. When I knocked on his door, an attractive young woman opened it. Ma'am, I'm here to deliver some papers to Lieutenant Stanton. Come on in, candidate, came the lieutenant's booming voice from within the house. The woman graciously stepped back from the doorway to allow me to enter. Sitting in an easy chair with a soda in one hand, Lieutenant Stanton smiled as I approached. Holding out a large folder, I said, "Sir, Candidate Jones asked me to deliver this to you." Taking the folder, he looked up at me as the woman sat down on the end of the couch near his chair. Opening the folder, he said, "I suppose you and the other men are wondering what the tactical officers think of your OCS class." Without reflecting, I responded, "No, sir. It never occurred to me to think about that." He seemed a little deflated by my response. "Well, just what do you want out of the Army?" he asked, staring me straight in the eye. "I don't want anything, sir. I want to serve my time and go back to do my internship in school psychology. I just want to help children." I felt a little sheepish after that last comment. He thanked me for bringing him the folder. I left. At last, our orders were in. The company first sergeant called us into his office. We walked up to his desk and he handed them to us. We were all excited. This was it. My orders said I would be staying at Fort Benning for airborne school and then going to the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center, Fort Bragg, North Carolina, to attend the 9-week Psychological Warfare Operations course. Jump school would start a week after graduation. I had not put in for airborne, but it was all right. Anna and I would stay at Benning for another 3 weeks. I did not know if we would be allowed to live together while I was going through airborne training. In any case, they had granted my request to attend psychological warfare school. I would get my chance to learn what the Army did in that area. Maybe it would help me in my graduate program when I got out. Scotty and Mel both got orders to jump school too. We were going to be in the same class. They had put in for Special Forces training and had been accepted. They would also be at Fort Bragg. We hoped we would have a chance to get together at the Special Warfare Center. Who knew what the Army would or would not let us do? We had a lot of details to take care of as graduation approached. We had to buy our dress blues and get fitted in time for the uniform to be tailored so we would look perfect at the graduation ceremony. We needed to learn about the government's life insurance policy and decide if we wanted to buy it. Several of the guys bought insurance with the idea of naming each other as the beneficiaries. That way, they joked, they would make money off of the other guy. Less than a week before graduation day, June 26, 1967, I was called to the first sergeant's office. My orders had been changed. The new orders, dated June 21st, superseded my previous orders. I was not going to jump school after all. Instead, I was to take 15 days of annual leave upon graduation and then report to Fort Bragg on July 13th. The orders further stated Indiviz SVC to be UTIL by Commandant HQ USA JFK send for Special Warfare, Fort Bragg, NC, prior to beginning of CRS. The course, Psi War Operations. 3A-9305 began on July 16th. At least I thought the course number was 3A-9305. Why did the Commandant of the JFK Center of Special Warfare want me for temporary duty, TDY, for 3 days? I did not know what my orders meant. Scotty and Mel could not make sense of them either. Our best guess was that, since I had not volunteered for jump school, the Army had decided to take me out of it and give me some leave time. We guessed that because the class was scheduled to start just 3 days after my arrival, the Army would probably not assign me to do much. Something still did not sound right to me. Well, I did not have much time to speculate on what the orders meant. Other things would keep me busy. The change in orders meant that Anna and I would have to move immediately. I had thought I had Anna settled in for the duration of jump school. Now we had to readjust quickly. The details of planning the move to Fort Bragg, leaving the house in Columbus, loading the car, arriving at Fort Bragg, finding a place to live, and then unpacking, all within 15 days, would be difficult. At least we would be together. We were grateful for that. I was surprised to find a degree of regret about not being allowed to attend jump school. All the way back to graduation day and basic training, I'd seen that the Army could and would change orders on a moment's notice. It did not consult with the recipient of those orders before the individual received them. That was the Army way. The full-bird colonel, addressing our graduation class, was about to conclude his speech. Now I know that the majority of you came straight out of college into the Army and OCS. You completed 8 weeks of basic training, 8 weeks of advanced infantry training, and now 6 months of infantry officer candidate school. You have been in the Army for 10 months and some odd days. You feel extremely inexperienced. You think that you still haven't learned what the Army is all about, let alone how to lead men in combat. Well, I've got news for you. When you average all of the time in service of every man in the Army right now, today, from raw recruit to colonels like me, the average time a soldier has in the Army is 9 months. So you see, you already have more time in service than the average soldier. Shortly thereafter, I was commissioned as an infantry second lieutenant in the U.S. Army.